WWE pay-per-views are a highlight on every wrestling fan's calendar, from WrestleMania to SummerSlam to Great Balls of Fire. Well, maybe not so much the last one, but with these events come moments that live on in fans' minds forever, adding value and legacy to each pay-per-view. However, over the years, WWE haven't always had the best ideas when trying to establish certain events with some awful names and concepts. So join us as we take a look into the 10 worst WWE pay-per-view names in history. Number 10. The Bash. After the WWE bought out WCW in 2001, they also took ownership of the video library and pay-per-view trademarks. The original Great American Bash pay-per-view was a staple piece in WCW, and WWE bought it back as an annual pay-per-view from 2004 to 2007. But then 2 years later, for no known reason, they rebranded the event as the Bash. The problem with the Bash was that it sounded incomplete without the Great American part, and strips away the theme of the pay-per-view. It also doesn't make sense why they would change the event's name after doing the Great American Bash for years beforehand. Number 9. WrestleMania Backlash. Wrestling fans have long beloved the Backlash pay-per-view, seemingly a perfect fit for an event which featured the fallout of WrestleMania. Then in 2021 and 2022, WWE decided to rebrand the pay-per-view as WrestleMania Backlash. From a marketing standpoint, it was a neat way to rope in casual viewers as the WrestleMania name holds a ton of value, but for everyone else, this felt like it might saturate the name of WrestleMania and saw no need to try and fix what was already a great name for a pay-per-view. Number 8. Fatal 4-Way. When WWE started to introduce gimmick pay-per-views, not all of them were a great idea. Events such as the Elimination Chamber made sense, but others not so much. One of these failed concepts was the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view. The idea seemed too forced, and the event itself featured 3 Fatal 4-Way matches, none that were very memorable at all. This would be the first and only Fatal 4-Way event on WWE's main roster, but would be revived in NXT for a one-off event in 2014. Fatal 4-Way is such a weak stipulation to decide an entire show, and the event has not been seen since. Number 7. Roadblock End of the Line. The inaugural Roadblock event happened in March of 2016, right before WrestleMania, and the name made sense. It also sounded decent, unlike its second installment titled Roadblock End of the Line. While the End of the Line part made sense, since it was the final pay-per-view of the year, it didn't sound like a pay-per-view name, and was quite a long one at that. Roadblock was cancelled by WWE after its second installment, but they brought it back in March 2022 as a special episode for NXT 2.0. Number 6. Bragging Rights. The idea behind the first Bragging Rights pay-per-view in 2009 was for the Raw and SmackDown brands to face off in matchups against each other for brand supremacy, an idea that had already been used for Survivor Series to begin with. As well as this, unified title belts and multiple brand crossovers on WWE TV beforehand made the whole concept of the pay-per-view meaningless. Only 2 such events took place, and then the brand split ended. The winning brand would receive a bragging rights trophy so that they could brag about it, even though this was often forgotten about within a month before moving on to the next pay-per-view. Number 5. This Tuesday in Texas. In 1991, This Tuesday in Texas was WWE's attempt at doing a pay-per-view on a weekday, but people didn't like this change, and the experiment failed when it didn't make enough money. Not only was the pay-per-view name terrible, but its undercard was also weak. Not even Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker facing off in the main event could save this one. Fortunately, This Tuesday in Texas only happened once in WWE history. Number 4. Taboo Tuesday. Taboo Tuesday may have been slightly ahead of its time and would probably fare better in today's heavy social media world. The event would allow fans to vote on match stipulations, opponents, titles, attires and much more. The event would be held on a Tuesday, hence the name, and was a unique concept for the WWE at the time. However, Taboo Tuesday doesn't sound like a great name for a pay-per-view compared to others, and 2 years later, the event was renamed Cyber Sunday when WWE moved it to Sunday nights. The final Cyber Sunday event happened in 2008, and then the Bragging Rights pay-per-view took its place. Number 3. Tables, ladders, chairs and stairs. Another stipulation-themed pay-per-view that the WWE introduced was that of the beloved TLC match type. To begin with, the name itself isn't exactly great for a pay-per-view, but to make things worse, WWE decided in 2014 to rename the event to Tables, Ladders, Chairs and Stirs. This was due to the first ever Stirs match being held at the event between The Big Show and Eric Rowan. It's safe to say that the concept didn't catch on, and to top off a terrible pay-per-view name, the main event between Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose is often criticised for a corny exploding TV ending. Number 2. In Your House 8, Beware of the Dog. In Your House pay-per-views were meant to offer fans a 2-hour wrestling event at a cheaper price and compete with WCW's monthly pay-per-view system. The 8th installment of this series was called In Your House, Beware of the Dog because the British Bulldog challenged Shawn Michaels for the WWE Championship on that night. The show was a disaster due to power cuts, and not only was the pay-per-view name too long, but the subtitle sounded a bit strange as well. Number 1. Great Balls of Fire. Great Balls of Fire was the worst WWE pay-per-view name of all time. The title sounds like something Vince McMahon would find hilarious, and that was exactly the case. McMahon probably loved the idea of having balls in a pay-per-view name, and he even licensed Jerry Lee Lewis's Great Balls of Fire as the event's theme song. Although the event did feature some memorable matchups such as Brock Lesnar vs Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns vs Braun Strowman in an ambulance match, this wasn't enough to try save a ridiculous sounding pay-per-view name. To no one's surprise, this has been the only Great Balls of Fire event to this day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more wrestling content.